Okay, so have you ever thought about writing a memoir? Getting your story out there.
It's a popular idea, but...
But then you hear all this talk about how nobody wants to read memoirs anymore.
Right, like it's a dying genre or something.
Well, we're diving into this YouTube video today.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, it kind of adds fuel to that fire.
Yeah, this one's from a channel called The Unwanted Book Club, and the title is, well, it's a whole mood.
Oh, what is it?
It's called Nobody Cares About Your Memoir. Like with the emphasis and all the weird places.
Wow. Just from the title alone, you can practically hear them rolling their eyes.
Yeah, totally.
But okay, before we all decide to throw our half-written memoirs in the trash, let's hear them out.
Right. Maybe they have a point.
Yeah, maybe they have a point.
Yeah.
So one of the first things they bring up in the video is this classic writing advice. Kill your darlings.
Yeah. Kill your darlings. I mean, every writer's heard that one, right?
Right, exactly. It means you got to be willing to cut the parts you love, but that don't really serve the story.
And that can be tough because sometimes we get really attached to certain parts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So is this YouTuber saying that maybe our whole life story is the darling we need to kill? I mean...
It's a bit harsh, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a little bit brutal. Like, I get it. Not every detail of our lives is going to be interesting to other people.
Right. And that's where that more nuanced application of kill your darlings comes in.
Yeah.
Like, even if we think a certain anecdote is hilarious or whatever, does it actually add anything to the story we're trying to tell?
Okay, that makes sense. It's about asking yourself those tough questions about why you're including something.
Exactly. Is it serving the reader? Or is it just, stroking your own ego a little bit?
Good point. Okay, but then this YouTuber goes on to say that the only way anyone's going to read your memoir is if you're like Oprah.
Or Michelle Obama, yeah.
Haha.
Yeah.
They're basically saying, unless you're already famous, forget about it.
Yeah, that cynicism comes through loud and clear.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it's all about having that platform, that built-in audience.
Yeah. But what about all those amazing memoirs out there written by, ordinary people?
Yeah. People who have led interesting lives, had these incredible experiences.
Exactly. I mean, think about it. I bet you've read a memoir or two that really moved you that wasn't written by some A-list celeb.
That's so true. And sometimes those are the stories that resonate the most, right?
Right, because they feel real, relatable.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But then this YouTuber brings up the whole changing world of publishing, right?
Yeah, so they start talking about how self-publishing has basically opened these new doors.
Okay, so that's interesting. So are they pro-memoir or anti-memoir at this point? I'm a little lost.
Right, because on the one hand, it's all nobody cares, but then on the other hand, it's like, hey, here's this whole new way to get your story out there.
Right, it seems a little contradictory.
Totally, and even with self-publishing, I mean, it's not like it's a guaranteed path to success.
Yeah, there are still challenges, right? Like you got to market the book, find your audience.
Absolutely, getting it out there, it's a whole other beast.
Yeah, you don't just hit publish and then bam, you're a best-selling author.
Not quite that easy, unfortunately.
No.
Yeah.
But, Kate, this is where it gets really interesting. Because after all that nobody cares stuff, they actually start listing a bunch of reasons why memoirs do matter.
So maybe they're playing devil's advocate a little bit.
I was thinking the same thing. Like, were they just trying to get people fired up, make them think?
It's a good tactic to get people engaged.
Yeah, it definitely got me hooked. So they start saying things like, you never know whose story might resonate with someone else.
Even if it seems ordinary, right? Like what might seem mundane to you could be life-changing for someone else.
Right. And they say every perspective has value.
Yeah, and they talk about how writing a memoir, it can be really powerful for self-discovery.
And healing, even if you never end up publishing it.
Right, like it can be its own reward in a way.
So that makes you wonder, if you were going to write a memoir, what would be your main reason?
Yeah, would it be to connect with readers? To process your own experiences?
I mean, there's so many different motivations for writing, right?
Absolutely. It's a very personal thing. It really is. And this YouTuber gets kind of personal too, talking about how it's so frustrating when people in the writing community look down on memoir.
Yeah, like it's not real writing or something.
Right, exactly. Like it's somehow less valid than, say, fiction or poetry.
And there's definitely a hierarchy there, isn't there? Like in certain writing circles, memoir's at the bottom of the totem pole.
Yeah, for sure. But this YouTuber is calling out that snobbery. And it's really interesting coming from this unwanted book club perspective.
Yeah, right. I mean, talk about irony. A book club looking down on an entire category of books.
Total irony. Makes you wonder, do some writers feel threatened by memoir? Like if more people start sharing their personal stories, maybe their own work won't seem as special.
Ooh, that's a good point. It could be a bit of gatekeeping, right? Like, no, my genre is the only one that matters.
Right. And it brings up a question for all of us, whether we're writers or readers. Do we think there's a hierarchy key in writing. Because honestly, the value of a book, it can't always be measured by, sales figures or awards.
And this YouTuber brings up a great example, The Glass Castle by Jeanette Walls. It's a memoir. It became a huge bestseller.
Oh, yeah. I loved that book.
Yeah, me too. But I bet there were tons of people in the publishing world who were like, nope, nobody wants to read about that.
It just goes to show you never know what's going to resonate with people.
Exactly. You can't always predict what stories are going to hit home.
Right, and sometimes those seemingly ordinary stories are the ones that pack the biggest emotional punch.
Absolutely. And that actually leads to another point this YouTuber makes. They talk about how some writers get so focused on market trends, they lose sight of what really matters.
Yeah, they get caught up in what they think will sell instead of what's true to their own experience.
It's like, write for yourself first. The market can figure itself out later.
Exactly, because even if a memoir never gets published, never sees the light of day, the act of writing it can still be incredibly valuable.
It can be a form of therapy, a way to process your memories.
And who knows, maybe that personal exploration will lead to other writing projects down the line.
They talk about how memoirs can be a way to connect with other people too, to find that sense of shared humanity.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Like, even though our lives are all so different on the surface, so many of us are going through the same struggles, the same emotions.
They use this phrase, don't underestimate the power of me too.
I love that.
It's so true, right? When we share our stories, we give other people permission to share theirs.
It creates this sense of belonging, like, oh, I'm not the only one who feels this way.
Exactly. It can be so powerful, which makes you wonder, how many stories are we missing out on because people are too afraid to share them?
Or they've been told their lives aren't interesting enough,
Yeah, like who gets to decide what's interesting? Everyone's life has value.
Absolutely, and that's a great reminder for us as readers, too, to be open to stories that might not seem like our usual cup of tea.
Yeah, we might be surprised by what we discover, right?
Definitely. And the YouTuber also acknowledges not all memoirs are created equal.
Yeah, some are going to be better written than others, for sure.
But that doesn't mean we should dismiss a memoir just because it might not be a literary masterpiece.
They make a great distinction between a memoir's commercial success and its personal impact.
Exactly. A book doesn't have to be a bestseller to be meaningful.
And sometimes those smaller, quieter stories are the ones that stay with us the longest.
Right. Maybe it only touches a handful of people, but for those people, it's life-changing.
And it goes back to that earlier question. What's your motivation for writing a memoir? Are you writing to become famous or to heal, to connect?
Yeah. Are you writing for the masses or are you writing for yourself? Or maybe for a very specific audience like your family or your community?
Because ultimately, the definition of a successful memoir, it's different for everyone.
And this YouTuber is really challenging us to think beyond those traditional metrics, like sales figures and book deals.
To think about all the different ways a memoir can create meaning and impact.
Exactly. It's not just about fame and fortune, it's about so much more than that.
And this whole conversation has got me thinking about the ethics of memoir writing too.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole other layer.
Because how do you balance being honest with protecting the people in your life?
Right, because a memoir, it's your story, but it's also going to involve other people.
And those people might not want their lives splashed across the pages of a book.
Exactly. So there's that question of consent, of respecting their privacy.
And also recognizing that memory is subjective.
Yeah, like what you remember might not be how other people remember it.
And those different perspectives, they can create tension, even conflict.
For sure, especially with family memoirs. But the YouTuber emphasizes transparency.
Yeah, like being open with the people whose stories you're sharing.
Getting their consent, being willing to listen to their feedback.
And recognizing that a memoir, it's not meant to be an objective account of history.
Right. It's your personal interpretation filtered through your own experiences, your own emotions.
So it's about finding that balance, being honest without being exploitative,
Absolutely. And being vulnerable without being self-indulgent.
And this YouTuber actually shares their own experience with writing a memoir, how it's helped them to understand themselves better, to make peace with the past.
And that's something to consider, that therapeutic potential of writing.
Even if you never intend to publish it, the process itself can be incredibly healing.
Right, like it's a form of self-care, a way to process difficult emotions.
So to sum up, this YouTuber is kind of flipping the script on a lot of traditional thinking around memoir writing.
Yeah, they're pushing back against the idea that memoirs have to be about these extraordinary lives.
Or that they have to conform to certain market trends, like this is what's hot right now, so this is what you should write about.
They're arguing that everyone has a story worth telling, and that writing can be this powerful tool for personal and social transformation.
And they're encouraging us as readers to be more open-minded, to seek out stories that might challenge our assumptions and broaden our understanding of the world.
It's almost like they're giving us permission to embrace those imperfections, those messy parts of our lives that we might usually try to hide.
Because often those are the parts that make our stories so relatable, so human.
And they're also reminding us to question the experts, to trust our own instincts as writers and readers.
Because ultimately the most important audience for our writing is often ourselves.
Even if we never share our work with anyone else, the act of writing, it can be this incredible journey of self-expression.
A way to connect with our inner selves and to make sense of the world around us. Yeah, it's great to hear someone pushing back on that kind of like elitism in the writing world.
Yeah.
You know, like, oh, you can't write that. That's not a good story.
And this YouTuber even calls out some other like YouTubers and writing influencers who might be doing that, right? Discouraging people from writing memoir.
Yeah, they do. It's like, come on, you're supposed to be all about supporting writers.
Right, like presenting yourself as this open-minded, encouraging mentor, but then turning around and being like, well, this whole genre is garbage.
Exactly. It's so contradictory. And this YouTuber even suggests maybe some of these folks are just like jealous.
Ooh, interesting. Like they see more people writing memoirs and they think, hey, wait a minute, that's my turf.
Haha, yeah. Like competition in the writing community, who knew?
Right. It's a different side of the whole creative world that you don't always see.
Totally. And it makes you think, is all the advice these writing gurus are giving actually helpful? Or is it just like reinforcing these outdated ideas about what's good and what's not?
Yeah, it's a call to be more critical, right? Question those assumptions. And ultimately, trust your own gut as a writer.
Because even if you never publish your memoir, the process of writing it, that can be so valuable in itself.
Absolutely. A form of self-discovery, like we were saying before. A way to process your life, make sense of things.
And you might even connect with other people who've had similar experiences.
Right. Think about the memoirs you've read that have really stuck with you. They probably touched on those universal themes, love, loss, searching for your place in the world.
And they probably made you feel less alone in your own life.
Totally. So whether you're thinking about writing a memoir or just looking for something new to read, keep an open mind. Look for those stories that might challenge you, help you see the world in a different way.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive into the world of memoir, and I'm definitely walking away with a lot to think about. How about you? Would you ever write a memoir?
That's a tough question. I think the decision to write a memoir, it's so personal, It might not be for everyone, but whether or not it aligns with what's, popular right now, the act of writing itself can be such a powerful journey.
A chance to reflect, to maybe heal some old wounds, and to really find your voice.
And who knows, your story, it might just connect with someone out there in ways you never imagined.
I love that. If anyone's interested in hearing this YouTuber's full take on the writing community and all that spicy stuff we were talking about, definitely check out their channel. It's called The Unwanted Book Club. Lots of good stuff over there.
And just remember, no matter what anyone else says, your story matters. Don't be afraid to share it.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.